guys. Thank you for sticking around for the end of day webinar. The market closes in about 15 minutes and things are still trending, but I need to hammer this out with you guys. I got some things going on right at the close today, so I have to hop out of here pretty soon. I just want to make sure I got time to cover everything. So first I want to go over the SPY chart and the big picture of what we've been seeing in the market the last few days. So I think today might have been an easy day for shorts to get trapped. I tried to keep an open bias this morning, but really I couldn't help but still be a little bit more long bias overall today, and that's really just for one simple reason. I'll tell you what that is in one moment. The reason I think everyone was thinking short today was because of the 3 days up in a row and probability or possibility of a retest towards the daily chart 9 EMA, which may get retested over the next couple days. But the reason I didn't believe today was the day for that was simply because what we talk about every day, we are still in an uptrend, clear uptrend on the hourly chart, and we've been continuously holding higher lows for a few days now. So here, 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 and here, and most importantly this morning. So I can see why maybe people would want to try to get short early in case maybe it ended up breaking, because it could have tested the trend, put a lower high and broke it, but it just continued to hold that trend. So my bias remained long throughout the entire day today. I didn't trade any SPY today, although if I had to pick a spot, it definitely would have been this first sort of breakout of this downward channel. You can see where we were putting in lower highs all day. But the thing is, when it got into that lowest point of the day right here at around, let's call it right at like 452.95, that's where I started to catch up with that bigger trend. Switch to a 15-minute chart. And the 15-minute chart trend was broken sort of earlier in the day here, and then it reclaimed, and then it held, and then it broke again. So there's two spots that I think would have been interesting for longs, depending on what time frame you're looking at. The 15-minute chart entry could have been here. You would have been risking a little bit wide though, off 453.08, so almost $1 a share. Alternatively, I think the 5-minute chart spot was a little bit more difficult to get into because there was a little bit of a higher low there. But I think that it would have been right in here. There was a little bit of a higher low, didn't really consolidate as much as I usually like to see. So I usually like to see like a test of that level and a little bit of a curl and a reconfirmation of support. But in this case, I think that so many people were probably on the wrong side of the trade this morning, shorting it, that they knew they had to get out on that break, and it was just too much buy pressure for it to pull back and have that last higher low. So as a result, didn't take any SPY trades today or futures trades. My plan today was to try to trade INTC versus SPY, which, as you guys know, I like that one just because it's a pretty steady trender, and when it trends nicely, it really goes well, and it follows SPY fairly closely. So basically, it followed SPY really, really well, and you see it at sort of at 12 p.m. is where SPY really started to break out. If you look at your chart on INTC, that's exactly the same point at which INTC started to really break out as well. So going into 12 o'clock, this is one of the spots that I was interested in going in long side right here versus SPY. Like I said though in chat, there wasn't particularly any incredibly good risk reward scenarios in these charts today. Obviously, hindsight, risk reward is really good on INTC if you view it like this, with an entry like that just after 12 o'clock right there. In hindsight, the risk reward is really good because it ended up trending all day, but of course, we don't know that it's going to do that all day. I just had my thesis that today was going to be a continuation long in the market. The charts confirmed it in the afternoon. I obviously didn't know that it would go this far, which as far as risk reward goes, went really far, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it could have also just made a leg up like this, and that could have been it. So it was hard to say that we're going to continue to get a big move out of the market today. I just knew that the bias was clearly going to be to the long side, so I wanted to trade basically only on the long side on INTC. And before I go over the way I traded INTC today, I just wanted to quickly cover the only other trade I took today, which was LCID. And I just want to explain why this one was actually more of a short bias to me. So LCID had we've been breaking down on the daily chart for a while now. If you guys remember, we had daily chart reversal through 3860 a couple weeks ago, and since then we've been trending lower, but we got really extended to the downside on that daily chart just a few days ago, and it was kind of due for a little bit of a bounce correction, and it did have that bounce correction yesterday. I'm just going to switch to an hourly chart down here in my bottom screen. See that 3101 area? That's where it kind of needed to come back and sort of retest that daily chart trend, and it tested it back here, and then today felt like it could have potentially been a continuation lower if it rejected it. The only thing that was ailing me in this one was the fact that I knew SPY was going to be, or I believed that SPY was going to be a bullish day today, so I wasn't sure if that might affect LCID too much, and as a result, as you can see, I didn't do the best job trailing it, but I got about nearly $1 a share out of it, so it was a good little sort of, let's call it an opening scalp. This trade though wasn't just, this is what I kind of base this trade on, and these are trades that, so for those of you that have been following me and trading in the small cap space with me, I basically never trade the first 15 minutes in the small cap space almost ever, unless it's a day 2 or day 3 reversal or continuation. Otherwise, I'm always waiting for the chart to set. But there were some things that, so first of all, like I said, the daily chart rejection, and this is starting to roll back over in the daily was the thought there. But the other thing that was really interesting was the failed opening push where it tried to get back over the hourly chart trend. My favorite though was this. It attempted the opening push on the 15-minute chart, rejected, closed under 15-minute chart trend. Second push tested, rejected again. 5-minute chart, failed flag right there through highs. And then it just, the way I've been playing these ones, and if this trade happens for me, it's usually actually within the first 15 minutes, and I usually do treat it as a little bit more of a scalpy type of trade, but as you can see in the case of this one, if the context is right on the bigger time frames, you can end up trailing it. So basically all I did was just looking to play the first bear flag continuation after multiple rejects to the upside. So you still need to wait for the chart to test up. There's going to be some early shorts who can't wait, and they get kind of caught in these areas low, and then they get stopped out in the high a day. You need to wait for them to get stopped out, wait for the chart to confirm a lower high, and then start shorting here with really tight risk. You kind of have your risk level set early. This trade's not going to work every single time, but if the context is good, that's the most important thing with large caps and small caps, but you just need to know what the context of the bigger time frames is. And in the case today, this would have been a more bearish context. We're in a downtrend on the daily chart. We just had a bounce, and we're kind of confirming a lower high in the daily chart. So I wouldn't be looking at longs at all on a day like today on LCID. But I would have been looking at longs, for example, 2 or 3 days ago, where we were really extended to the downside, and there's room for it to bounce back to retest that daily chart trend. So these trades happen pretty quickly, like they unfold within a minute or two. So these are good ones just to sort of explain how they happen. There's almost never going to be time for me to type out a whole plan on a trade like this because it just happens within 2 minutes. But I've caught a bunch of these over the last 2 weeks, almost all successful, mostly. I've gotten them on the long side as well. And I was trying to do the same thing on LCID, but long bias earlier today. So this was the short trade on LCID. Started shorting on the first 1-minute chart trend break, which was right there, and then added, which was right here, through that, right here, that 2973 area. See, I was a higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low. First trend break, started shorting, confirmed a lower high for the risk level, and then added through 2961. And then just took a bunch of covers into that flush. Really good start there on that one. Wish I trailed it better, guys, but the school of thought for me today was SPY was going to be most likely long bias, and yeah, I wish I trailed that one better, but I didn't, so I moved on from it. Let's move over to LCID. I didn't necessarily have all the best entries on this one, but I had, on INTC, I didn't necessarily have all the best entries on it, but I had all the right ideas in the overall direction of the market the last few days, and I did well the last few days trading these large caps, but I maybe could have done a better job trailing them. So I really tried to stick with my thesis today and try to find some sort of clever spots to enter, but not all perfect. So let's talk about that. So first spot for me was we're breaking into new highs. I always kind of like to, so like I talked about with the LCID short, um, similar thing you could do to the long side, and I do when I feel like it's a weak open reclaim. This one just didn't set up quite as well. If you look at LCID, it had a bit more of a setup with like a flag and a higher low before it broke out. So this one just felt like it broke out a little early and is a little premature. So if you miss that early move, always wait for the stock to fully make that opening move. Don't chase. Wait, wait, wait. And then once it has stopped out the early longs, and you can sort of, I'm actually going to switch to this chart so you can see it a little better. And I'm going to clear the board as well. But big thing with, I don't really care if it's small caps, large caps, any asset. What you want to try to focus on is where are people long, where are they going to stop out, or where are they going to make the mistake of stopping out, where a short's going to get trapped, and where are they going to stop. So the way that I see this one was any early longs that bought it, let's say in here, or if they chased it up through highs, or even worse, you guys know why this would be not a valid flag to play. At this point, all the longs are already in, and it wasn't a proper 5-minute chart long signal or setup based on the system we use, nor was it even close to a 15-minute chart setup. So you sit out on that. All the early longs are stopping out here, and shorts are going to start entering down here. And sometimes in these areas is where you can find really good risk-reward scenarios, but they're not necessarily always the highest win percentage sort of areas to play. But I went with the basically today I just went with being confident in the fact that it was going to be an update today, and this was a good opportunity for where longs got stopped out to start looking at getting long. However, I made this similar mistake a few different times. If you go back through a bunch of different webinars, there's been a few here where I've been taking this exact early entry and getting slipped out of it and then re-entering again. I've done that a few times, and it's always on that first sort of ramp back up. There's an AL for it. I mean, if I had the stop at just under the higher low at 48.44, I would have been fine there. But it looked like it was rolling on me, and I almost exited the position there, and then it was much more confirmed on the way back up. So the first spot that I really got a good position was when it started to ramp back up, and I started to see that flag forming for the move higher. So this was the start of where I started getting like long on LCID. So selling into these pushes to 80, 88, 92, 96. The first reversal signal, short-term reversal signal, was right in there through 87. I sold more there, but I kept a core position on for the day on this one. The next spot I started to like was over here on this next. I'm going to switch to the other chart. Was going over here into, and we're going to look a little bit more to, like we talked about the last few days, as you sort of progress through the day, focus a little bit less on the smaller time frames and start to look at the big picture. There was a lot of stuff going on in this 15-minute chart that I thought was very attractive. The first thing was where it broke below 48.70, indicating a short-term reversal, but then close over it. So on days like today where I'm long bias, and there's lots of reasons to be long bias, one of the biggest ones for me was because the daily chart's due for a correction back to the upside to retest trend. When I saw that flag to the downside, that break down, reclaim instantly, that was where I wanted to start sort of reloading the long position and kind of risking off the low of that candle. So again, not necessarily the best risk reward stuff, because if you enter at 86, risk at 62 is a little bit wide. It just depends on how much, the stock trends for you after that. And today we got a pretty generous trend, but it's not always going to be that good. But that was the first really interesting point, was another sort of short trap. And the big thing is that you want an area where longs have a reason to sell to reset the chart. So I use that term all the time on the stream where I'm talking about the chart needs to be reset. What I mean by that is we need a spot where longs are going to sell, and ideally shorts are going to come in. And for example, this first big trend break, and it was also the first break of the 15-minute chart trend, So it tried to sort of hold here on the 15-minute chart. It failed. So there was definitely, look at the extra volume right there. So this is definitely a spot where longs have been forced to sell, at least weak-handed longs were forced to sell, and shorts would start shorting, which obviously would be a mistake in this in today's market environment. So now you have an opportunity here where most of the longs, or a lot of the longs now are out of the way. The chart is kind of quote unquote reset. They tried to break the trend. It's showing now that the trend is holding, and now you have a new opportunity potentially to enter. So I started nibbling back in the long side over here and then through the flag break, and then taking sells into big pushes. And then I'm always kind of looking at where the chart is extended is where I'm going to start selling. So once I feel like there's a nice extension, I sell into the big pushes, never buy into them. Took a little sell by accident there, and I bought it right back in there, and then selling into highs. One more little nibble right there, sold more, sat through the pullback. Actually, my stop at this point, guys, was, like I said in chat, 48.95. So it actually kept me in by 2 cents on that pullback. A little bit lucky for an ultimate sort of all-day trail. So yeah, it just obviously turned out really well today on that one, and I, just kind of, I didn't really micromanage the trade too much either. It was really just a matter of just trusting the trend, and just the thesis was correct all day, and it remained correct. So it was just kind of easy to stay in it. It never really challenged my entries that much either. So there was really no like really big spots where it was difficult to hold through. And that was it. I didn't trade any SPY today. I didn't trade any small caps today, though earlier I was kind of looking at BBIG, and then they kind of ruined it with this, they kind of like a premature high at daybreak there that was just kind of ugly. And yeah, unfortunately, guys, like, the small cap space right now is just not very active. And man, I love trading small caps when they're active and full of volume, and there's a lot of great setups. I illustrated yesterday some of the risk reward scenarios that used to be very, very common out there. They're just not as common anymore. And in the past, for me in the past, I would go through periods where my system was so strong on small caps, the edge was so strong on it that I would actually be okay with kind of sitting out and taking it easy for maybe a week or two during periods of like market turmoil. For example, during that big COVID dip, the biggest one we saw recently when the COVID first sort of hit, that kind of slowed down small caps back here. That slowed down small caps quite a bit for a couple weeks, and I kind of just weathered it. I still had small trades here and there, but I wasn't making any big trades. And then eventually, they kind of came back. I just weathered it. But as of recently, with the combination of extremely slow, low volume, not as many gappers, and now the huge influx of like funds, HFTs, algos, it's just almost not even really worth it. Unless there's a lot of retail volume there, and right now the retail volume is not really there. It's more or less in the futures and in large cap space. So the good thing about obviously having a solid trading system that has a good foundation is that you can adopt to use it on anything you want. And while things are pretty volatile, in SPY and in the indexes and within large caps, it's actually been really good to be able to trade trends like that, because quite frankly, in the small cap space, you're very infrequently are you going to be able to get a second or third leg or an all-day hold on the long side. A lot of the time, it's quick and dirty, and I like that. Like you'll get a quick move, risk 10 cents, goes up 30, and then you kind of get in and out. You try to trail it, but it'll take you out. So you don't really get as much all-day follow-through. On the other side of that, there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period if you're not used to trading large caps, because there's a bit more noise in them, right? So there's a little bit more longer holds, and you got to be able to sort of focus on the bigger time frames to keep your emotions in check, and also make sure that your trading size that you're comfortable with trading, so that you can endure the just sort of the let the stock breathe is what I call it. So obviously there's going to be areas where if a certain area level breaks, you got to sell based on multiple time frame setup or reversal signal, but ultimately you want to try to keep your emotions in check by kind of letting things work out within the bigger time frames and not getting too caught up in like the little bits of chop that you see on the 1 minute chart time frames. All right, guys, that's going to be it for me today. Tomorrow we'll do the same thing tomorrow. I've been long biased a few days in a row on SPY. That could change tomorrow, but we'll really have to wait and see. As of right now, the trend is still holding strong. We haven't seen any signs of a reversal in this market yet. Um, but there's some key levels that if they get breached, I'll start watching closely today. Definitely 455.25. Once we see indication of a bigger, or if we see indication of a bigger reversal in the overall market, of course I will be watching. Something like this would be getting my eyes on it for just like sort of a short-term pullback for a day or two on SPY. But just as easily, if we open up a little bit weak tomorrow and then reclaim and flag, I'm just going to go back to remaining long bias until the chart tells us not to. So I'll be watching SPY along with, again, Intel. I didn't do anything with AMD today. It stayed weak and it stayed under hourly chart trend, though it gapped down. It gapped up, but it faded so quickly this morning that it didn't really. There was a spot right here that looked good actually for a short, and this was after a test of the bigger time frame trend that rejected. So this was probably my favorite place to look for a short. But the market was bullish today. I just didn't really feel like going after this. I was really just more interested in trading with SPY and INTC to the long side. PayPal was another one that negative earnings, and it gapped way down today. And this one again gapped down so much there's just no meat left on it, so I didn't want to get chopped up in it, so I didn't bother with that either. So I think we had our eyes on the right stocks today. And then there was obviously LCID, which I think had really good context for the short side today. I'll be watching all those again tomorrow. We can scrap this off the watch list. I did not like that move on BBIG so much today. I think it was just a little bit premature attempt to break out on the daily chart or on the intraday chart, but this chart actually still does look good. Give it like 2 days to trade sideways, or maybe even one more inside day, and then see if a bigger look for a multi-day flag to form on this and see if the volume comes in. But again, always careful with small cap. I think I've had like one small cap trade in the last week and a half. So, and guys, like, believe me, I'm not done with them. When the volume is back and they're ready to go again, I'm in it. But right now, it's just not where the money is. So, expand a little bit and kind of get open to the idea of using the same concepts that we teach on the small cap stocks. They roll over beautifully into large caps as well, and you'll find that it's really the same thing. Just moving a decimal place over on the price is really the only difference. All right. So BBIG, though, I would watch that, because if it does hold, let's say for another day or two, it could try to set up a little daily chart flag here, though. Like I said, not sure how much volume or follow through there would be in this type of market environment. It's not a bad chart, though. I'll keep it on watch. I think we can kind of ditch OLB. I might just take a price alert if it gets back over 225, but this one doesn't look good, guys. So I'm going to scrap that for now. Keep all the rest of those on watch. And I'll probably, we'll firm it up tomorrow. BFRI is, I'm just going to clear the board on this one. This had a 3-day run up, and today was a good day for a pullback. Retest the daily chart trend, which held. You can see that we're starting to consolidate a little bit on the hourly. So those of you that are trying to monitor small caps a little more closely, give this one more day of sideways, and then see if it tries to set up a daily chart flag. We already got BBIG. IMMX was the example, I think, from yesterday. I thought it was this one. Yeah, where there was actually a really good risk-reward scenario, and that's the kind of thing I used to see quite frequently. Risking very little to make a lot in that setup. IINN also had, IMMX we could take off watch. IINN actually had a good setup. I saw it coming in, decided to pass on it just for this reason. Look, perfect setup over a couple days, nice consolidation, multi-day flag. Popped 20 cents and failed, just like I said 5 minutes ago. So, not that it, to be fair, it wasn't quite ready on the daily chart for a move higher. I think that was a premature break. All right. So, and then other than that, we got. Like I said, guys, we'll firm up the watch list tomorrow, but Tesla's been, despite the market kind of bouncing, Tesla's been having trouble reclaiming that daily chart trend and kind of looking a little bit like LCID did today. This is actually starting to form a bit of a bear flag on the hourly chart, and where the daily chart is resisting and rejecting. That could be troublesome, especially if the market rolls over tomorrow, because even on a strong market day today, Tesla had a lot of trouble, couldn't get back over its trend through 913, so that's going to be a key level. 913.30. So keep an eye on that one tomorrow, maybe for a bit of a pullback if it sets up for a break at 900 or higher. VVOS, this one we will probably keep on watch for a few more days. Just nothing but really slop and chop on that one right now. I think that's basically the main watch list. SBEV needed a correction on the daily chart. If this one's going to set back up, probably early next week. I give it a few more days. I kind of need this one to. Actually, what I'd like to see on this one is sort of a reset on the daily chart. What I mean by that is get daily chart longs out, stop them out under 369, and then if it resets back up, then it'll start to look good again. It's been a bit too big of a trend, and longs just haven't had enough of a reason to sell yet. So that would be good. Stop out some longs in there, and then if it sets back up, go after it. If it sets up again, would be a good way to go after that one. So I might just stick a price alert up here, maybe around 395, and come back to it next week. And DWAC, I mean, DWAC was extremely resilient during the SPY downtrend over the last 2 weeks. So there has been some additional strength in this one. There was a multi-day flag set up yesterday that followed through okay. Had a little bit of a pullback today. You can widen that flag line. And then watch over the next few days and see if it continues to consolidate in there. It might pull back a bit, then see if a bigger sort of setup starts to form in here going into I want to say like next week or the following week after that. But yeah, I'll come up with some other ideas, guys, in the morning. Once we see what's gapping, we'll firm up the watch list, and I'll be looking forward to live trading with you guys again tomorrow. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow.